This episode of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast is sponsored by Caneswear. Caneswear.com is the spot where Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com, the best and most affordable gear for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Marlins, the Miami Heat, the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, all of the professional and college sports teams in South Florida. Caneswear.com has you covered. If you're in South Florida, you can visit the storefront at 2655 South University Drive in Davie. They ship internationally as well. So Caneswear.com, make it the place. It's the best and most affordable Miami Dolphins gear. That's Caneswear.com, Caneswear.com. And don't forget about Dolphins Talk Extra. Go to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk for additional Miami Dolphins content. You get extra access to our private Discord server. You get bonus podcasts covering the Miami Dolphins. You get off-topic content as well. We have live watch-alongs. We have retro rewatches where we watch old games and talk about them. We do off-topic shows. We have prizes, contests, all kinds of exclusive access only for Dolphins Talk Extra subscribers. So join us, patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. You can join the fun for as little as $3 a month. Head on over to Dolphins Talk Extra at patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. And now, on with the show.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to a podcast under Dolphins Talk. We're here to talk about the Miami Dolphins. I'm your host, David Bearman, founder of Betting with Bearman, which you can find at bearmanbets.com. Here to talk Dolphins football. I'm joined by Carter Melrose. Carter, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. What I love about this, show that we're doing is we met 20 minutes ago, and now we're going live together, which is exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm pumped up because Dolphins, we're inching towards the start of the season.
I always joke that I talk with people more on podcasts than I do my own wife, but such is the nature of the beast. Yes, training camp is here. Players are reporting. It's here. It's late July. It's about 150 degrees outside, which means football's on the horizon. I know people, there's still Major League Baseball going on in the WNBA, but we're here to talk Dolphins football. It's late July. Players are reporting. They're going to be loving camp. And then, roster cutdowns come, preseason games come. Next thing you know, it's September, it's Labor Day, and then we got football too. So I bet you're excited. I'm excited. So Carter, a little bit intro to yourself, let's tell Dolphins fans a little bit about your background, then we'll get into the Dolphins.
So like I said, I just met David. David gave me his rundown on all of the places he's popped around in the sports industry, okay? I'm a little different. Between the two of us, I'm a little different, okay? So my name is Carter Melrose. I started out my career in radio a little bit, in small town radio, but then I just realized I like podcasting. I like the Dolphins. So I've been with Dolphins Talk for, I think, 4 or 5 years at this point. We took a break last year. Our show was called The Two Amigos. If you're a diehard Dolphins Talk person, maybe you've heard of The Two Amigos. It was me and Jorge, and we took that break last season, and it might have been for the best, David, as it was not the best season to talk about, honestly. So many lows last season. David, what were your feelings on, just quickly, what were your feelings on last season?
I have said this before. I said it on Dolphins Talk. I've done a couple of these with Josh and his brother and with Mike as well. Happy to be with you, Carter, and maybe we'll have a new Two Amigos for the season.
Yeah, that'd be great.
To answer your question, I put this simply: as exciting and awesome as 2023 was, because even though we expected good stuff, I'm not sure we expected a team that was going to score 70 in a game and put up, video game numbers for a while and have such an awesome season that they entered week 17 with a shot at the 1 seed, which was not something anybody expected, and then ultimately crashed down in ways that only the Dolphins can do. As exciting as that season was, that's how disappointing 2024 was on the flip side, because 23 raised the expectations. You were a win away from the 1 seed. You were a win away from the 2 seed, where you could have played a home playoff game, and it all came crashing down. But you figured, bounce back in 2024, learn your lesson, figure it out. Tua gets injured. Tyreek Hill has his worst season. Waddle has his worst season. The team was just not good, and you just left yourself wondering, did you miss that window? So that's the short answer to 2024 was as disappointing as 2023 was exciting for the most part. Let's forget about the end of the season. 2024, not what we expected. And then now we're going to get into 2025. So taking care of some business real quick before we hop into 2025, go to caneswear.com for the best and most affordable Miami Dolphins apparel. They have everything from Florida Panthers, Miami Heat, Miami Marlins, and Miami Hurricanes. Go to caneswear.com or visit their store at 2655 South University Drive, Davie, Florida. And, for me to pitch Caneswear as a University of Florida alum, hey, paying the bills, caneswear.com. Also, Bet Online. Just save up to $250 in free bets when you sign up. Check the description in YouTube for the link to sign up and save more. Bet Online. Those are the two sponsors of today's show. And Carter, what I wanted to do off the top here after we did our introductions is talk about 2025 expectations, because we talked about a minute ago how 2024 didn't go as planned and how 2023, for the most part, was a success until the crash and burn. Let's start right off the bat. Like, 2025 is here. Training camp is now. We still have 6 weeks to go or so before they actually play real football games. Where are you at the end of July and your expectations for what you think of the 2025 season?
I think there's kind of like two different ways that you can take this question, David. In my head, you have to ask yourself the moral question. I guess it's not a moral question. The physical question, is this team better or worse than last season? Okay. Mm-hmm. And in my head, if you just look on paper, if you look at the depth chart of the 2025 Dolphins, I would say you would call them worse. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would. I don't know if I'm super excited about that defense. I don't know. I also, though, would say if you look at this offense, 2024's offense on paper and the 2025 offense on paper, you'd be like, okay, well, you just put up 50 and we have a chance, right? Or just put up extreme numbers and we have a chance. I don't know, David. I don't want to be the pessimistic person on this. David, what do you think, I guess?
I'll be perfectly transparent. My expectations are as low as they've been in a long time.
Okay, we're on the same page.
A lot of it is burned at the end of 2023, and then 2024 you came in with, all right, we'll correct the little problems in 23, and 24 will be the year. And it was such a negative year in terms of, like, you went from hard knocks, having fun with the team, doing the selly, scoring 70 a game, right there until the collapse. And then 2024 was just miserable start to finish. There was just nothing good. Quarterback gets hurt again. Offensive line breaks down again. Wide receivers disappear. Defense got injured. It was like deja vu. Jalen Phillips gets injured again. Bradley Chubb you didn't even see. And it's just like, all right, now you go into 2025, and the expectations also align with an offseason type that we have not seen by the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins have been that franchise that just wins the offseason every single year. They go and spend money. They go and make trades. It's Tyreek Hill 1 year. It's Bradley Chubb in the middle of the season. It's Ndamukong Suh. You can go years and years and years how the Dolphins are always that player. It's come play in Miami. Let's get these big free agents. And the Dolphins, in their defense, did not have the salary cap room this offseason to make a splash. And they practiced some fiscal responsibility, which I thought was ironic that everybody who said the Dolphins spent bad in the last couple of years are mad that they didn't spend bad this year. I think the fiscal responsibility was fine, and they learned a lot of lessons, but really, Carter, they're paying the price for mistakes that they have made over the last 3 to 7 years when this whole rebirth happened in, 2019 is when they were bad, and then they drafted Tua and everything was supposed to take off. So this 6-year rebuild, like you call it year 6 of this, not where we thought they would be. I think 2 years ago was where we thought they'd be. And now you're going into 2025 on offense. I think they have the pieces, like they have the same pieces they had 2 years ago. So it's there. It's just a matter of whether Mike McDaniel can get this offense to where the people who figured it out last year, you can do something against that. And as far as the defense, this is going to be the weakest this defense has been in terms of a depth chart that we've seen in a long time. They don't have depth at the defensive line. They don't have depth in the secondary. And whereas they drafted there, none of those guys are ready. So, like, your thoughts on how they handled the offseason in one respect, I just wrote about it for DolphinsTalk.com, was released this morning. I broke down the offensive line. I think the offensive line is in better shape than it was, but Carter, that bar isn't very high.
Yeah, I think this is how I'm thinking of it, David. When we talk about the offseason as a whole, all right, you think you're probably on paper, this is probably the least sexy offseason that we've had in a long, long time. And I think I've started to notice maybe my connection with good memories with the Dolphins are when they are being horrible financially, like making big splashes and getting you hyped and excited for the season. That's been my draw to the Dolphins, I think, in a lot of ways, because on I don't know, year to year record basis, we're mediocre most of the time. Okay, so I think when we're looking at this roster still, David, I'll let you go into like the Ramsey's gone, Jonnu's gone, those types of things, and then who we additionally got. But what I really, really want, and then you can go into those who we got, who we released type thing, is I kind of just want to get back to 2 years ago Dolphins, where we were just feeding Tyreek or feeding Waddle, where we were like at least feeding the talent. Because last season, McDaniels did this thing where he redesigned the entire offense to feed like Jonnu and Devon. And I just want it to be like, I just want to be more fun again. That's all I want. That's what I beg for this season. I think the additions in terms of, most of our additions are from the draft or just like, pick up and plug players. David, what do you think about the additions and the subtractions? And do you think it's a net positive for this offseason?
I think the Dolphin roster, and you hit it off the top, is not as good as it was last year, top to bottom. In terms of additions, sure, they got draft pick Jonah out of Arizona, which I think will beef up the offensive line. They no longer have Jalen Ramsey. They no longer have Jonnu Smith. They went and got Darren Waller off the retirement heap. You go out and you look at their secondary, and I'm looking right here at the depth chart, Cater Cahu and Cam Smith, Minka Fitzpatrick in the trade. You just doesn't excite you. Now, maybe we'll be different this year because expectations are low. And maybe, and I say this a lot with Chris Greer, maybe he knows something that we don't know about some of these guys. I thought they drafted well, getting Kenneth Graham, which was a need on defensive tackle, and then obviously getting the big guy out of Arizona on the offensive line. And, you talked about it a minute ago with their offense. And I want to point to a game last year that I happened to be at with my brother and cousins and dad. I went to Indy. And every year we have a cousins trip, and the game was Indy. Obviously, we plan these long in advance before we know Tua's going to get hurt and your quarterback's going to be Snoop Dogg Huntley and then Tim Boyle. But looking at the target load for that game, and I know Tua was injured, but you have Hill and Waddle there. And I'm not an offensive – well, I am because I do coach football, but I'm not a Mike McDaniel offensive guru. And I'm not setting game plans for the Colts. But when I look at the box score, and my family talked about this on our little march back from the stadium, the funeral march, I call it, when the Dolphins lose. Jonnu Smith had 7 for 96 and a touchdown and 7 targets to the tight end. Alex Engel, the fullback, had a target and a catch. Waddle, 2 targets, 1 catch. Hill, 2 targets, 1 catch. And the rest went to running backs and tight ends. And if you look at it as a whole, Hill and Waddle had 3 combined targets, and tight ends had 8 targets, fullbacks had 3 targets, and running backs had 4 targets. I don't know what offense he was running there. And that wasn't the only game where that happened, where you got, on average, $68 million a year being spent on Waddle and Hill with their extensions. And you can't find a way to forget about get them the ball, to even try to get them the ball. And I was sitting in the end zone watching. Those guys were not open, which is hard to imagine. And the quarterbacks just weren't there. So you got to go back and figure out, what is McDaniel going to do this season to get his star quarterback, $250 million quarterback, the ball to 2-star wide receivers, because that's where the offense is. That's where it is. And obviously, Achane's going to be great back there at running back. Where are you when it comes to Mike McDaniel and his offense. We've seen it explode in 23. We've seen it be a disaster in 24. Where are you with 2 years ago? This guy could have run for governor of Florida. He was so popular. Now people are calling for his head and they want him out. Where are you on it in the offense?
I think it's similar to, I think you have to start looking at the kind of like the coaching changes over the last couple, like 4 regimes, as we've gone from, Gase was this quarterback whisperer, and then we went to like a defensive, coach with Flores, and then you come back in, and we're like, okay, no, McDaniels, no, that's a quarterback genius, or that's an offensive genius, but they run into the same problem. These offensive geniuses run into the exact same problem where they get super cute, right? Mm-hmm. They start getting cute and they think they're smarter than everybody. And I wonder on the McDaniels last season, where you have so many toys to play with, and you're like, how do I involve them all? And then you just forget the obvious ones. It was really interesting in my head. I was like, why? Halfway through the season, you need to take a pause and go, but we got to get these boys involved, right? So I think the optimism going into 25 is you still got the toys. The offensive line is better on paper, right? Mm-hmm. Getting Armstead out of there so you don't have to worry about him being injured every single game, that's huge, okay? Now we go into this movement of you still got the toys. You got honestly, you got like 4 or 5 toys that are like all NFL. Okay. Yep. So we think about that. That's positive. Tyreek Hill's on Instagram right now going, last season I was eating potato chips. This season I'm plugged in. Okay. All of this offense needs to put up points. Every time they touch, if we're punting, we're probably losing the game. Okay. Right. So I think that's the positive here. If you believe in McDaniel's ability to restructure this offense, learn from his mistakes, and that he's actually like a San Francisco guy, and that he's actually an offensive genius, the pieces are there for them to be like top 5 offense in the league, if everyone stays healthy. Mm-hmm. So there's my optimism there. I think McDaniel's could be that guy. I don't know. This could be his last season, if not. So we'll see.
Yeah, and they're on notice, and the offense has to. I don't think it needs to go all the way back to 23. We're scoring 70 a game, but it's got to be better than it was in 24. And want to hit on something that you said. The tools are there. The toys are there. Like the Dolphins offense, I agree with you, and I wrote it in the column this morning on Dolphins Talk. The line is better. We'll see how healthy they stay, but I do think the line is better. The toys are still there. Waddle, Hill, you went out and got Malik Washington last year. He'll step up. They went and got Westbrook Akeen from Tennessee. Achane's going into his first year as the absolute cowbell starter at running back. Last year they were going to split time. He took over. Year before he was a rookie. They got the toys. Tua starts the season healthy. Like he starts every season healthy. We've seen what can happen when everything is firing. And we've seen Tua ability to be a top 5 quarterback when healthy and the weapons are there. My biggest concern is the game plan. Mike McDaniel didn't show me anything last year in terms of the ability to adapt that game plan based on what the defense is giving him. Once people started figuring out his offense, and it started late 2023, or any good team in football that is a playoff team, as we've seen, can figure out how to stop the offense. And in 2024, he had no answers for anybody. So if Mike McDaniel wants to come back in 2026, I firmly believe he needs to find that next vision of the offense that, again, doesn't have to score 70 a game, but it can't be a situation where you don't get the wide receivers involved at all. Now, you're going to get a decent tight end in there, not Jonnu Smith and Darren Waller, depending on what Darren Waller shows up. But to me, the tight end is like an escape hatch if you can't get the ball to the wide receiver. Yeah. So I think we're on the same page as far as where the offense is. We know it's capable. We know they have the tools to get it done. Can McDaniel adapt? Because people started catching on to the 70-point offense to the point where they scored 7 in a playoff game. So people caught on. And last year, you can give the excuse that Tua missed a couple of games. He missed 4 in the middle of the year, and the offense was an absolute train wreck with backup quarterbacks. But even when Tua came back, that offense wasn't running on full cylinders. Hill had his worst year. Waddle his worst year, and you're relying on a free agent tight end to get the job done every single week, and that's just not his offense. They also got to get the ground game going. Like, he is a San Francisco offense coordinator type offense where they relied on their ground game, and that's a team that can win in NFC championships with Brock Purdy at quarterback. Tua has proven to be a better quarterback and a better offense if they can get it going.
That is very true. And David, I have a very burning question too. Okay.
Sure.
And we got to be honest with these people. I really want you to just tell us straight up. Do you think we're about to is this a soft, are we going into a soft rebuild here? Or do we believe genuinely that we have a chance of competing this year? Like, what are your expectations? Like, I want to know, like, let's just pull it off.
I don't like to use the word soft rebuild because I don't really think there's such a thing in the NFL. The NFL has proven you need to blow it up and start all over like other teams have done. There are ways, like the Patriots proved for 20 years, to just continue it going, but the Patriots were never in a soft rebuild. They were still winning the divisions while they were rebuilding, and they still had Brady and Belichick. So I would never call that was just sustainability. You know, the Bengals proved that you go down and get the number 1 pick and rebuild. The Browns have attempted it time and time again. The Rams rebuilt and won a Super Bowl and then were bad for a couple of years, and now they're back in contention. The Niners were bad for a few years before they got back into contention. So I don't necessarily think that, let's put it this way. If my boss told me you got to make the playoffs or bust, no more of this crap, like your job's on the line, I don't think a soft rebuild would be my answer. Now,
No.
He didn't go spend billions of dollars to get it done now like he's done in the past. So I frankly, and I don't say this often, and I don't like saying it, I honestly have no idea, because what they did in the offseason made sense from a fiscal point of view and from a salary cap issues that they have caused on their own. But if we're going to do a rebuild, why do we have the same front office that we had before? Because the owner at least has said he's not in this for another rebuild. They need to win now. This team's not winning now. So it's almost like you can write the story before it happens. Like, this was an 8-win team last year. And while I believe Tua coming back will help, I don't think the roster's any better. I would actually be surprised if they won more than 8-9 games this year. I think you asked a minute ago my expectations. I think that the ceiling for this team would be 10 wins if everything goes right, which would be one less than they won 2 years ago. I think that's the ceiling. If everything went right, schedule booked the right way, everybody stayed healthy, had a couple of good games, I think you could win 10. What scares me is the floor.
Yeah.
Because if they don't figure it out, and they have a couple injuries on defense, as weak as the depth chart is there, and they don't figure out the offense, this could also be a 4-win team, in my estimation, the floor. And that's not, like, when your floor is here and your ceiling is here, like, that's not very good. Now, maybe they could surprise me and all those, but I don't think they have enough to prove me wrong here, where all of a sudden they're going to win 12 games, win the division, and host a playoff game, which is what they allegedly need to do for Greer and McDaniel to keep their jobs. So if you're playing you know how the story ends, this is about when the Dolphins get rid of their coach. 4th year, made the playoffs, went back the other way. This is about when that, you've seen it. You saw it with Soprano, where he won his first year and then got fired a few years later. You saw, even though they didn't make the playoffs, like, they've had, Philbin had a good first year and then it went south the other way. McDaniel, good first couple of years, it goes south. Like, this is what this franchise has done. And if you keep on the rabbit wheel, then, I mean, I wrote a bold predictions article back with Pro Football Network. And my bold prediction was this would end in Spain. They have a tough middle of the season. And if you look at the schedule, as I pull it back up, if you look at the schedule, they go to Spain after having played the Falcons, a potential playoff team, the Ravens, a playoff team, the Bills, we never beat, and then Washington before a bye week. If you're not in good shape at that point, I don't see how Ross keeps it going.
Yep. No. And David, you almost, I mean, you gave me like a little bit of chills there because I think I'm in this. I think I'm in the same boat here of looking back a little bit to sort of predict where we are because you're starting to see maybe this whole Ross ownership concept is you get 4 seasons, you get 3-4 seasons as a head coach, and then normally it goes about the exact same way. I was looking back just this morning just to at some of the old articles I had written on Dolphins Talk, and when Flores was fired, and most people were on one end of the camp, either super outraged or they loved it and they thought this was an amazing decision. Either way, the article I wrote was called "The Dolphins Continue to Swim in Circles." Okay. Mm-hmm. And I think this is kind of where we're at a little bit in my head as well. I started becoming a Dolphins fan, David, in 2012. That was the year that we had Hard Knocks. That was the year that it was Tannehill's rookie year. We had Ocho Cinco on that team, and not for long, but we did. That team it's very special to me because it had a lot of the big names that I grew up with. Brian Hartline, Devon Bess, Cameron Wake. Love all of those players. My point, though, is I wanted to do some research here, and the Dolphins Continue to Swim in Circles article, I went over the 4 regimes that I had been a part of: Tony Sperano, Joe Philbin, Adam Gase, and Brian Flores. And right before McDaniels was hired, I'll just read this one paragraph, okay? And you tell me if this sounds familiar, David, okay? Mm-hmm. Someone do me a favor and try to spot the differences between these 4 regimes. Ignore the statistics, ignore the narrative surrounding the team and the players, ignore it all. During Sperano's time, our offensive ingenuity took the league by collar. During Flo's few years, we won through defensive prowess. But one thread has always remained constant within the walls of the team. None of these coaches has ever been able to put it all together. And the result, no matter how seemingly unique, has elicited the exact same outcome: absolute mediocrity. And over those 4 regimes, we averaged a 7-9 record. Our record over those 4 regimes was 100 and 110. And we are now with adding on McDaniel's contribution to the pie, we are at 128 and 133 since 2008 in the Wildcat season. We've had I think 2 playoff, maybe 3 playoff seasons since then, 0 playoff wins, and 0 division wins since I became a fan. David, is history repeating, or can McDaniels pull us out of this? What do you think?
It's the hamster wheel, and we've written about it, we've talked about it. Your article perfectly encapsulates it. It's just the hamster wheel. You get a new coach, maybe it's offense, maybe it's defense. They do well, they make the playoffs right off the bat, and then it goes the other way. People figure it out. Soprano did it in 2008. Made the playoffs. They won the division. The last time they won the division under Chad Pennington. They figured it out for 1 season and then didn't make the playoffs again until 2016, where they figured it out for 1 season, made the playoffs, lost in the first round. And then it took until Mike McDaniel came to town, where they went to back-to-back playoffs, which hadn't happened in a billion years. Again, didn't win at Buffalo, didn't win at Kansas City, and now it's starting to go south. The only difference between the McDaniel era so far and the other eras is they've made the playoffs twice. But the same end result is no wins. And we're going to look back 10 years from now and realize what a miss 2023 was. Because you can talk about the Ravens game that cost them the 1 seed, or the blown division at home on Sunday Night Football that ultimately ended their season, going to Kansas City and having to play in sub 30-degree weather. Or you go back to the fact that they blew a 2-touchdown lead in the last 4 minutes of Monday Night Football at home versus one of the worst teams in football in the Tennessee Titans. So you're going to go back and say, had that team hosted a first-round game, if they had won the division, they would have faced Pittsburgh, which was a fraud. And then all of a sudden, you're hosting Kansas City in balmy January weather in Florida as opposed to negative 30 degrees. Now, listen, the Chiefs were the better team. They beat them in Germany, and then they beat them in the playoffs. So they're the better team, and then they went and won the Super Bowl. But that game's a little bit different if you're hosting it. And then all of a sudden you're going to an AFC championship game if you beat Canton. There's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts.
Yep.
End of the day, they didn't get it done. 2024 is a disaster. And you can't get rid of the owner. You can't. Like, the owner's the owner.
No.
He makes a decision as to whether he wants to get rid of himself or not. If he's true to his word at the end of last offseason, then I don't think McDaniel makes it, or Greer, because at some point, this is not a team that's going to win 11, 12 games. So they're going to be 7-10 or 8-9, 9-8, not do anything because you get the wild card. Maybe they get lucky and win, but we have 25 years of them not winning in the playoffs. Does he get rid of everybody? And then you're really starting about a reset, because now you're going to bring in a new GM, a new coach. Do they want Tua? I mean, he's under contract, but again, you can change those things. And you're starting all over again. And the best thing that happened to Tua is McDaniel coming in and getting rid of Flores. And that's when you thought they were righting the ship. But now the ship's going the other way. And listen, it's not just game plan. The offseason also has been about, does he have control of this team? Are the players running is the inmates running the asylum? How's the culture? Ramsey gone. This person gone. No one wants to be there anymore. That's an issue that only is cleaned up if they clean house.
Okay, I think, David, unless you have another segment we could pop through, do we want to end with something like super optimistic and positive as we go into training camp, or how do you want to play this?
My last question segment, which could absolutely end in a positive thing, is...
Okay, I'll try.
Camp is starting. We're here. Players are reporting. Mm-hmm. What is one thing you want to see from camp over the next couple of weeks that will get you excited for the 2025 season? We'll end positively. I don't know my answer yet, so I'm going to let you go first. I have to make this up on the fly. I wasn't expecting to ask this question. We like to improv here on DolphinsTalk.com. What would be something that you want to tell the people listening what they need to do and watch, and something that would be optimistic for you?
Okay, so this could actually make me optimistic for the entire season, honestly. If the reports coming out of camp are that Tua is making people look stupid, like if Tua is destroying this defense, this defense needs to look like the worst in the NFL. Like, I'm okay with that as long as Tua is the reason why. You know what I mean? That, like, he looks sharp, he's not missing a beat, his timing's on point, he's making the throws that he didn't last year when he did play. Tyreek's heavily involved again, and Waddle's heavily involved again. Those things would be super, super optimistic for me. And then also that the offensive line is allowing us to run the ball. You know what I mean? If we can do those things, I mean, defensively, maybe the reports that would make me happy are, Greer knows what he's doing. These corners aren't as, iffy as we thought.
Sure.
Right? But I would say offensively, you just want your quarterback to start showing some elite talent. And he has in spots, in between injuries. I just want them to say, Tua is making everyone look stupid. That's what I want.
I feel like that's all I hear in training camp, to be frank. Like that every single year at this time of year, all I do is get tweets and videos of Tua throwing bombs to wide open receivers because it's training camp. So yeah,
that's true.
No matter what this team does, you're going to be getting, and then when Tua throws a knuckleball up there, it's going to be all over the internet and he sucks and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
To me, it begins and ends with the offensive line. And I said this on pre-draft podcasts back in March. All I wanted them to do was draft offensive line. I would have been happy if they used all 7 draft picks on the offensive line. I want to see how this offensive line holds up. I want them to be healthy, and I want them not just run blocking. Run blocking is going to be huge because they need to get the run game going to get the pass game going. They also need to protect Tua. Let's call it what it is. If Tua gets injured, this team's a 5-win team. Like, they scratched out 8 last year because he only missed 4 games, and then he came back and missed the last couple. But, like, they won with him. They went, 1-3 in the middle of the year without them. They're not – that's what sank their season, them losing Tua last year. Without Tua, this team is nothing. So I need that offensive line to run block, and I need them to protect QB1. They don't protect QB1. The season's dead in the water. The minute he got hurt in Buffalo last year, it was dead in the water. So keep him upright. Now, of course, last year it wasn't necessarily the line. Tua decided to try to, run up into the end zone and made a stupid play, but you still got to keep him upright. And as long as the offensive line is healthy and upright, they got a fighting chance. So that's where I'll leave it. And, Carter and I will be back again. We're going to do these as often as we can. Today was a beginning of training camp. Let's look at the Dolphins and see what the expectations are. Hopefully, for the most part, hopefully we're wrong and the team will do better than both of us believe. And hey, now training camp may change things and we're going to keep you updated. Carter, any last words before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think it's a classic. This is, what I kind of like is that my expectations aren't super high. So then we get all this above ground, positive outlook moments where you're like, oh my gosh, that's great. We beat the Colts to start the season or something, it could be awesome. It could be I would be totally happy in January time to be one game out of a wild card spot and we're fighting still, that would be awesome. So I'm personally not going to I'm going to do my best going forward, not to be super pessimistic, because we've covered that the expectations are low at this point.
Yep.
And I'll tell you this right now. Tua could stay healthy the entire season. The offensive line could glue together and we could still win 9 games and squeak into a playoff spot. So I'm excited. I'm a Dolphins fan either way. So
you mentioned it begins in Indy, and next time we chat, I think that's the topic. I think we break down the schedule and look at what the schedule looks like. I do believe, and I'll leave this as a tease, that the beginning of the schedule is doable for Miami.
It's doable.
I think their best hope is to get off to a positive start and then hold it when you're looking at the fact that their first 5 games involves 1 returning playoff team. But we'll get into that next time. Carter, I appreciate it. This was fun. I know we met only an hour ago, but we had a good first podcast together. Remember, go to caneswear.com and bet online for all your needs. And of course, for me, bearmanbets.com for betting with Bearman. Sign up for the newsletter as well as listen to the podcast on Believe Podcast Network. And of course, go to DolphinsTalk.com for all of your great content. Marissa Marino having her interview series out there. You get Big E out there. Carter writes for them. I wrote an offensive line story this morning and plenty of other really good contact from Mike, Josh, and everybody else. So for Carter, this is David. See you next time.